Well, since Roe versus Wade, we as a nation have executed over 50 million innocent civilians in the sake of convenience and or choice. I had a quote that I took from the National Right to Life Committee, and this is just a little bit dated, but not much. It says a new estimate published in the National Right to Life Committee indicates that there have been an estimated 54,559,615 abortions since the Supreme Court handed down its 1973 Roe versus Wade decision allowing virtually unlimited abortions. And that's a sad fact in our nation. Do you understand that that is more than the entire population of the state of California? That if we were saying how many people is that, you could take every single person, man, woman, child in California and remove them, and that would be how many children have been terminated in their mother's womb since that decision came into being. We look a little bit more, and it's only a million less in Texas and California populations combined. Two of our biggest continental states, we have wiped out that many children. I'm ashamedly pro-life, and I do pray that abortions will one day be banned in America. They were banned when I was born, thank God. They were illegal in 1965. But everyone born 73 or after, could be a good chance that they would not be here had their parents made a decision to legally end their life. Now, I know some are sympathetic toward the women's so-called right to choose, stating, well, it's their body, and I need to inform you that the child inside them is not their body. It's somebody, but it's not their body. It's in their body. See, once conception takes place, a brand new life begins. We need to understand that a child is being made inside the womb. The child is a resident, a separate individual inside the womb, and the mother has no right to end that life under any circumstance, in my opinion. That it's not her. It was her body before she chose to have intercourse. And she could have chose not to, or could have chose something else. But after life comes, that choice is laid to the side. Let me ask you a couple things. First of all, we think, okay, that's their body, they can do what they want. Right now on the beaches, I know several times a year, they put up all these barriers that go around these places on the beach because there's turtle eggs buried there. Turtle eggs. Now, I love little turtles, they crawl. Most of them don't make it to water, but predators come and get them. But what would happen if you went over there and started smashing the buried area with a shovel and started breaking over all these eggs? Now, don't do that. That would be horrible. It would be killing. You shouldn't do it. The problem is that a turtle has more right to life than a human being does. Same with the eagle egg. See, why that thing's developing inside the shell? They call it life, but inside a human being, it's just a blob of tissue. It's not the same. That more priority is given to a turtle egg or an eagle egg than there is to human life. And we've been trained to think that's okay. And really, it's not. Now, I'll ask you one other thing. What would happen if you were a landlord? You owned an apartment building. And the apartment building is, it's getting run down a little bit. And you decide that, it would be more beneficial for me to tear down the apartment building and put up an office complex. That would be more beneficial to me. You think, well, I'm going to do that. You can go, you can get the plans drawn up, you can do everything you'd like. The problem is you still have tenants living in your apartment building. You can't legally take the bulldozer and knock over the apartment building with people living inside. It'd be called murder. You have tenants inside, and you have to make sure that they are no longer there before you destroy the building. That's not too much different to me than having a child inside a mother's womb and killing the tenant. It's just not ethical. You just can't do it. The pregnant woman still has a tenant inside. It's in her body, and it's part of her. 50% the male, with the 46 chromosomes, 23 from each parent. But a lot of times that child has a different blood type than the mother, and it's different because it's knit together from two people into a single being. And it's not just part of her body, it's a tenet in her body. And I want to be sensitive to those who may have had an abortion. I understand that some in this audience, like Cheryl mentioned, may have gone through that procedure. They may have been pressured into abortion. They may have been told there's no other options for them. And they may believe that, listen, it's better now for you. You can't afford this baby. I know there's a lot of lies, a lot of things told to people. And some people are put in positions where they make a decision they will later on regret. I remember in Iowa, we were familiar with a center, and there was a woman who could not even operate a blender because of the noise it made. It sounded so much like what happened during her abortion. So I want to be sensitive to that. And for those who've had an abortion, I point out that there is forgiveness, and there is grace, and there's healing, and it's available through Jesus Christ. You don't need to be trapped in that mindset. There is freedom for you. And I don't want you to believe another lie from the enemy of your soul that tells you there's no hope. What you've done is unforgivable. No one wants to hear you. No one wants to talk. If they knew what you did, you'd be an outcast. And all these lies come up after the fact. The enemy wants to keep you trapped in darkness. You don't have to stay there. You don't. I want to look at a passage that's dealing with conception and development. It's found in Psalms of all places. You think it's Psalms David writing together. And I'd like us to look at the scriptures in Psalm 139. It's a wonderful passage to look at. It's a wonderful passage to spend some time on. And David, through the Holy Spirit's leading, is writing about conception and life and how it comes about. In Psalms 139:13, it says, "You formed my inward parts. You covered me in my mother's womb." Now here's a shepherd out in the field having deep thoughts and starts writing these things down. I don't know where David was when he was writing this, but he starts thinking about life. He's thinking about life. And then he starts thinking about his life. And what he comes up with is that it was God that formed my inward parts. Lord, it was you that put my inward parts together. It was you that covered me in my mother's womb. It's you that knit me together. You did all the work. Inside my mother's womb, you created me. And that's what he's thinking about. That's what he's contemplating. That's what he's writing down the words. See, the entire conception and development of a child is completely amazing. We have in our generation the ability to see what happens as development takes place. Even using ultrasound, we could see the child inside the mother. And yet Planned Parenthood and other pro-death organizations like to use words like blob of tissue or it's just a fetus and dehumanize life inside the mother. That word fetus is actually pretty interesting. It's from the Latin. You know what it means? Little one. They're right. It is a fetus. It's a little person. It's a little one. But they use the term and say, well, it's just a fetus. It's just a blob of tissue. But once again, isn't that turtle just a blob of tissue inside the shell? The embryo is forming. Isn't it just a blob of something? But it's alive. It's living. It's living. We have to understand that. See, we are made in the image of God. God is both the maker and giver of life, and we can understand that. And Genesis clearly informs us we are not only made by God, but man is made in the image of God. Now, we understand God created everything, and He created them in 6 days of creation, 7th day He rested, and He created every living thing, the plants, the trees, the animals, the bird, the fish. None of those are made in His image except His crowning work of creation, man. Made in the image of God, and we see that in the Scriptures. Genesis 1:27. So God created man in His own image, in the image of God He created them, male and female He created them. So God created Adam, He created Eve from Adam, but He created them. He made them. And He made them in His image that made them separate and higher than every other thing He created. The crowning work of His creation was something made in His image. How special is it? It is so special to Him that He would send His one and only Son to die to redeem those He made in His image. That must be pretty significant. If you would send your only Son to die for those made in your image, it must have some value to you. And God chose to do that. Since God is the maker of life, I believe that he should be the taker of life. And there are children whose life never come to maturity. I understand that. We have had 2 miscarriages. We would have 8 children. And I would say, we do. There are miscarriages. Babies are stillborn. And this is used by pro-death advocates to support abortion. Saying, well, someone won't make it anyway. What difference does it make? Well, it makes a huge difference. If the creator of it decides not to have it fully developed, then that's his business. But if it's healthy and viable, shame on us if we decide otherwise. I mean, who would have the right to destroy an artist's work? If there was an artist doing a canvas work or a sculpture and he's working on it, it would be immoral and it would be unethical for you to go and slash his canvas or to smash what he's sculpting. That's the artist's work. And if he decides he doesn't want to finish it, he decides he doesn't want to do it, that's his business. He's a creator of it. But no one else has the, if you will, the authority to go and destroy, disturb, alter, or change the work that he worked. It's his. It's his creation. And he'll make it look like he wants and design it how he is, and he'll bring it to fruition. So no one has right to come destroy the work except the artists themselves. And I know that they're saying that, what about the single mom who already has multiple children? Well, once again, maybe she ought to have thought about that previously. Maybe. If you keep having babies, I promise you there's a solution to that. It's not killing the children. It's stop the activity you're engaged in. So, but what about those who have several children, multiple children? I'll use a common argument from the pro-death side. And the mother simply can't afford another child. Look at the position that you're putting her in. Children are expensive. Listen, I get it. We have 6 children. I get it. They want my money all the time. They ask me for it on a weekly, sometimes daily basis. And some of them have jobs. I know. They're expensive. I get it. I know that. Well, let's say a family who is struggling, already has 7 children. They're struggling to make ends meet. They're doing everything to keep their head above water. And then they find out that they have another mouth to feed. The wife comes to the husband and says, I'm pregnant. Again? Why? Oh, it's partly your fault. But they have 7 children, and then they realize that, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? That's another mouth to feed. We don't have room in the house. What are you going to do? There's all these things that come to your mind. But what if they have 7 children and then realize that they're pregnant again? Well, I want you to look at 1 Samuel 17:12 with me, because there's a story in the Scripture close to that, and we'll look at it exactly of that nature. It says, Now David was the son of an Ephrathite of Benjamin of Judah, whose name was Jesse, who had 8 sons. The man was old, advanced in years, on the day of Saul. So here's David. He was the son of an Ephrathite of Benjamin. His name was Jesse. He had 8 sons, David being the 8th, the youngest. And you remember the story about the prophet Samuel going to anoint the new king, and they go to Jesse's house, and they bring all the sons out, and one by one they come through. All of the sons come through. Abinadab comes, and the other ones come, and all the way they go through. And they go through 7 sons, and the prophet says, God hasn't chosen any of these. Do you happen to have any more children? Yeah, I got one scrawny one out in Shepherd. He ain't much. He says, well, we're not doing anything until he comes in. That's one God chose. The 8th one God had a purpose for. So what if they would have ended the life of the 8th child? I know some of you thinking, well, maybe in that case they should consider abortion, having 7 children, having another one. 7 children, find yourself pregnant again. Maybe it would be better in that specific case. Maybe it might be better. Or if you're thinking that, I want you to consider a fact. If you chose in a